Hello, everyone. Um, Happy day, morning, afternoon, evening, different time zones around the world. And if you are new to the Pranic family, then welcome to this community. And I am relatively new, actually, or quite new. And let me introduce myself also before we dive into the topic here today. And just for now, I'm um, going to mute everyone, and then we'll definitely have some time for more discussion and questions. And I have some questions that people asked on the chat. So to introduce myself, first of all, hello. Some of you know me, but for those that don't, my name is Noa, Noa, and I recently joined the Pranic family through my dear beloved friend Anna, that she's here as well. She introduced me to this, and this is such a dream come true because I've been so craving and yearning for more community and more people that are on this path and are on this journey. And as I would say, probably most of you, if not all of you, know and recognize that this is not necessarily the mainstream yet. And this journey can feel a little bit alone, especially if you're not surrounded by um, family members or friends that actually understand and get this path. So it's so lovely to connect with more people that are on this journey, and we can support each other. So very grateful for this Pranic family tribe and the vision of it and where it's going, and very exciting things on the horizon for sure. And for me, as a new member to the Pranic family, I've been on this particular journey, if you want to call it pranic nourishment, or what I just don't like labels, but this journey of, let's say, vitality and well being, and really exploring what is available and possible for us, and what is the potential that we have as humans. I've been on this on this particular journey for many years. And when it comes to this particular lifestyle of, just for the sake of simplicity, call it fasting, it's been a journey of the recent years. So, to give you a bit of a background, throughout my life, I was very fascinated with nutrition and health. Now that I really knew why I was drawn towards it, on the surface, it was, or at least at the beginning stages, it was more of like the surface level of curiosity, just because I wanted to look better or whatnot. So I was very always curious, like what kind of food is going to help me to look better, or all those things. And but that kept moving me in the direction of exploring and being curious. And it's been a progression for many years, when it comes to the food aspect of letting go of things. And it started from a very young age. As I said, when I was 12, I stopped eating meat, just because it just didn't make sense to me anymore. There was no influence or anything like that, obviously, when I was 12, which, yeah, it was only 2 years ago. um, I know it was a while back. There was no Facebook or any external influence. It was just me connecting the dots in my own awareness. And so that came about very early. And as I said, it was a progression throughout my life. Of once I got into my 20s and started to be more exposed to information about veganism, and all the um, different ways, as I said, to improve one's health when it comes to food and nutrition. And in my early 20s is when I started practicing yoga, actually, and that was a huge catalyst for me in regards to my own transformation and healing journey, as it pertains also to, and which I'm going to bring up today because there was also a question about that, um, as it pertained to my journey of self-love and healing some core wounds when it came to body image and self-worth and self-value and all those things. So yoga was a huge catalyst for me back then, and it all kind of came together. The yoga opened many doors for me in my consciousness and my awareness. Not that I was seeking for that whatsoever, but it just opened me up to many things. And there's a lot of transformation. I know there are many yoga practitioners and teachers on this platform. The changes that occur on the chemical level in the body, chemically speaking, biologically, emotionally, mentally, because it's all connected, all those things were taking place, but I didn't know. Like a lot of my journey, I was following my intuition, which is a big pillar in everything that I share and that I teach. I was following the guidance, the inner guidance within me. And now we are exposed to so much information, and it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, in a sense, because we could get lost. And I'll speak about that as well. We can get lost, and the things that we hear, or teachers that teach certain things, and even shiny objects that may catch our attention, and we lose touch with the inner guidance of what is true for me. So, not really knowing what I was doing, I didn't know anything about detoxification. I didn't know anything about body regeneration and all those lofty, not concepts, it's just reality. I was following my guidance, and one step led me to the next step and the next step. And so, even though I was, as I said, very curious about nutrition and health, it wasn't until I think it was 2008 or 2009 is when I discovered living foods, what people call raw food. And that was a huge shift. And back then, at the same time, there was so much that opened up for me in the metaphysical world of learning about this reality, and that we actually are, we have the ability and the potential of creating this reality based on our mind. And so there was a huge spiritual awakening happening for me at that time, and so in conjunction with me finding living foods, and everything about it made sense to me. And I switched overnight because that's my nature, is when I find something that speaks to me and resonates with me, I dive in head first and don't really look back. So everything about it made sense to me, and I switched, and I was loving the raw food. And very shortly after that, so yeah, that was back in 2009, is when I found. Now, again, I don't like labels, and you're going to hear me say that a lot. I don't like to say vegan, vegetarian, breatharian, fruitarian. All those things are just unnecessary labels in my own humble perspective. But for the sake of simplicity, I'll just say that back then in 2009 is when fruitarianism appeared in front of me. And when that dropped on my lap, it felt like I just had found God to me. I read a book, the 80-10-10, felt like I was reading the Bible. Again, dove in, never looked back, because I had always been a fruit lover. Always, always, always. As a kid, fruit would be the number one choice for me. And after many years of speaking to people and clients and whatnot, I realized that there's, for so many of us, it's the same story that I hear people say, oh, I've always loved fruits, or no, but then we get conditioned, or the misinformation that is out there, like fruit is not good for you, or the sugar, like there's just so many misconceptions. And I felt into that trap as well, for some time. But then when you hear the truth, when you come across what resonates with your soul, it's undeniable, right? And so that was for me. And when I can eat all the fruits that I want. Like it was finding heaven. And again, I just didn't look back. I dove in, and for I would say almost 2 years, it was that I pretty much ate majority of fruit, and it was very very strict. With the natural hygiene as well. So it wasn't just the fruits, but I was based on the information that I read. It was the natural hygiene, which I still promote, which I still support, which I still follow. It was there's no salt, there's no oils, there's no spice, like all those things. It was just out of the question, and I was predominantly fruits, maybe some salads here and there for almost 2 years. But again, back then I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything about detoxification. I was just loving the fruits, and I don't even remember if I was experiencing. Probably I did experience some detox symptoms and whatnot, but I just didn't have any reference point. So I was just loving it and living my life. And then from then until now, fast forward a little bit. So if I had stayed only with fruits from a decade ago until now, of course, things would have been much different, but it's all good. I had deviation in my core. I always stayed a fruit lover, and the majority of the food that I have been consuming, I would say in the last decade, has been fruit, with different periods of more fruits and or less. But I had deviations, uh, staying living foods most of this past decade for sure. But it hasn't been just fruits or just the food that is really optimal for human consumption. And my own journey is also has a lot to do with eating patterns. So it's not just about the food that we eat and what we eat, but is actually how we do it and the patterns and the energetics behind it. And as I shared earlier, um, somebody that is coming from a background of eating disorders and body image, that's been a huge piece to the puzzle in my journey thus far, and one of the reasons why I haven't necessarily stuck to just very very pure kind of eating, because of those different patterns and habits and mm, emotional places within me in which I have been healing and discovering um, more love for myself, and that's really the essence of this journey. So I'll speak more about that. And as I said, fast forward a little bit, fasting coming into all of this. I mean, I'm really grateful. It was in 2017, after some deviations. I met a dear friend that we ended up being also partners back then, but he was coming from the same teachings that I bring forth today, and he brought me back to the center. Basically, he brought me back to the path, and that's and he also introduced me to fasting, which back then it was. I mean, of course, I had known about it, but just the thought of not really eating for 3 days, or it was kind of like weird. And even intermittent fasting, he introduced me to that, and it's like, oh wow, you don't eat for 18 hours, like you just eat once a day. Like all those concepts appeared in my life to show me this is the next step. I had done a 7-day water fast in 2012, but no contacts whatsoever. I was just guided to do that. And I had done 40 days on juice in 2013. So I had things along the way that I had done just from following my own guidance, which now looking back, I know have helped me so much. But it's really great when we have the education and the information, and we apply that to our own guidance, and this is where we mix the art with the science, so to speak. So that brings a lot of power to what it is that we do. So it's not just what we do, but how we do it. Which that's a main piece to this discussion today when it comes to fasting and the art of fasting, and that's one of the reasons also why I'm sharing this story of the background and what I've learned thus far. So 2017, Noah back to her tracks and being introduced to fasting, and it was a very tough year that year, 2017, but there was a lot of transformation that occurred there. And then I would say the two big catalysts thus far, from 2017 till now, have been the water fast in 2020, 20 days on just water. And then the biggest, even more than the water itself, is the 93 days on juice that I completed last year. And dry fasting is something that came into the equation actually in 2020 after I had done water fast. And that's when I started hearing more about dry fasting. And of course, at first it was kind of like, weird, but there was a knowing that resonated deep in me. I'm like, because I don't like to drink water and I don't promote it even from a health perspective. But something about it resonated with me, even though it was a little weird at first. And that's when I started experimenting with dry fasting, just 24 hours at first, 36 hours and whatnot. And from then until now, I have done several 3 to 4.5 days dry, and then just a regular once a week. And I'll touch more on that in terms of the different rhythms and such of what I do now and integrating that into my life. But definitely the dry fasting is a big, as I know a lot of you know, is a big game changer as well. So yeah, that's the kind of like in a big nutshell my journey up until now, and everything that I have learned along the way with the different, call it modalities, and my own exploration with myself, and then working with clients. So also to that, I would add that the background that I come from is a detoxification specialist. I had been following Dr. Morse, that I'm sure a lot of you know. I had been following him for many, many years. I mean, even when I started with the fruits and everything. So it's been a decade, I would say, that I was following him. And it was in 2019, I believe, is when I officially got certified. And again, combining the art with the science, because it brings so much more power to what it is that we do. So when I bring this topic to the table, when talking about fasting and talking about this lifestyle, I really like to approach it from a holistic perspective, because healing and purification and regeneration has many different layers to it. And what works for me may or may not work for you. And when it comes to fasting and when it comes to this lifestyle, the pranic lifestyle, there are many different variables based on your own individual journey. And as I said earlier, whatever the wounds, whatever healing that is in store for you in this life. And I brought up the eating disorder piece because I see it a lot. And it's not just women, it's, you can say maybe majority of is women, but across the board it's something that I come across quite often. um, because it seems like many people from that background are attracted to the pranic lifestyle and this lifestyle in general. And this is why I had found is that when I was in my teens in high school and I was starving myself for the sake of wanting to lose weight, there was a deeper knowing. And I'm mentioning this now, um, if it applies to you. There's a deeper knowing when it comes to keeping the body empty. So I'm not promoting eating disorders by all means or starving oneself. It really is just, there's a difference between the energy that is behind what it is that we do, right? I know we can all agree on that. So back then, even though mentally and emotionally I wasn't in a centered place, the intention perhaps you can say wasn't pure. There's such a thing as a soul knowing. Just like I started doing yoga because I wanted to look better. I didn't really seek anything spiritually, but the soul moves us in certain directions for a particular purpose that we may or may not know what the purpose is. Just like being drawn to the pranic lifestyle and this journey, and what we classify as breatharianism and all of that, is actually a way to move us more in the direction of love for oneself. That's what I've come to learn again and again, that it's not about the eating or not eating, um, how much you can be nourished with or without food. That's a byproduct. And there are so many beautiful teachers in this community that I keep hearing the same message, really. It's not about the food, it's a byproduct of what happens when we are engulfed in so much love for this divine creation that is you, right? And same thing, I've learned that along the way, to not get caught up in the goal, so to speak. Like, I want to be pranic, or I want to eat, or I don't want to eat, or all those things. It's how much can I be rooted and anchored in love for the self and life in general. So, as I said earlier, with the soul guiding in a certain direction, when you have an eating disorder of some sort in earlier years, I had a deeper knowing now looking back, that I recognize the vessel, the body being empty of physical food is the way to go. Yeah. And I was doing it from the wrong reasons, but nevertheless, there was some wisdom there. And so now coming back around many years later, equipped with everything that I have gained from personal experience and from learning, I have a deeper understanding of what this life is about, and the role that food and no food plays on this discovery journey, our own individual discovery journey. So before I continue, I want to just see if there's any questions thus far, or something that anyone that is present now would like to share. And if not, I will continue. And then we have the chat as well, so if you are on the Zoom. Okay, cool. So I'll continue. Fabi, there's something you want to say?
No, I think you can continue and maybe I'll ask later.
Okay.
Well, oh, I could just share one thing that resonate with what you're saying, and especially for me because I come from the more like the spiritual ashram life into the fasting and the whole like detox and purification. To me, I guess I started from that perspective, so it's actually just like deepen my uh, yeah, my understanding. I mean, not my understanding, but it's really been freeing me even more. But I have many people that I've talked to or seen coming more from the physical, like, aspect of like, I want to look better, or I want to fix this disease or this thing. And when I started hearing their reflections or their way of thinking, I almost felt a little bit, how do you say this? Uh, it was like the same thing as like religious people like trying to sacrifice themselves, like like it's like the worst side of religion. The side where it's like, oh, there's the hell and there's the heaven and I have to sacrifice everything to be better. And I didn't really enjoy this kind of talking when it comes to like all types of fasting. And I guess it didn't resonate because I came from more the spiritual side. And to me, like, fasting is more like a journey within, in a way. So I don't know what you have to say on that, but this is like uh, there is a two different dialogue. There's really the people who come from like just physical, they have nothing to do with the spiritual introspection, and I feel like they're hurting themselves more. What do you have to say on that? I don't know.
Hmm. Wow, Fabi, thank you. You're opening up another big segue. Yeah, so I do agree with you, and as I shared earlier, we all come from different backgrounds, and for some it is from more on the spiritual uh, place. For some of us, it's purely physical, but I know that it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what catapults you into this. We all share the same common destination, so to speak, if there is one, which is to merge with the light of who we are, which to me occurs through love and the love for the self and the God that resides within each and every one of us. So whatever gets you through that door doesn't matter. Now, to answer your question in regards to, well, are those people hurting themselves, or coming from a practically a strictly physical place? Um, it's again, it's holistic, because for some that just come from the spiritual connotation and disregard perhaps some physical aspects, or fasting can actually work as a shadowy um, mechanism of detaching from the body, or detaching from physical, and getting lost in a sense in up here, right? So to me, this journey is all about integration, and not that one is better than the other. That if I fast for spiritual reasons, I'm better than the one that is fasting because they want to lose 45 pounds. Ultimately, as I said, we all share the same spiritual journey, whether we know it or not. And the holistic perspective, to me, is always the most valuable one. And we each have a different way of merging with that, of arriving to that recognition. Um, and we can dive into karma and whatnot, but it's just there's no room
Yeah,
to
that's
compare.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
beautiful thing. Yeah.
yeah. So and that's a really important piece that I bring about very often, like how just don't compare. And I say it from experience, because when we come to these places, and people come from many different levels, you can say, just various levels, right? Some are just beginning, like never done a day without food, right? And then there are those people here that barely eat anything, or are just on liquids, for have been on liquids for 5 years, and then just everything in between. There's such a spectrum. So one of the things that is really important for me to convey with this discussion when it comes to fasting and the art of fasting, part of it is to stay in your own lane. And that's something that I constantly remind myself, is to stay in my own lane and to listen to my own guidance. And the other piece that I'm really happy that Fabi brought in, he said the word freedom and joy, which are big values here at the Pranic family. One of the reasons why I resonate with this tribe so much, and just the values, is freedom and joy are like at the top of the page. And when I saw that, I'm like, great, it's exactly what my foundation is based on, especially freedom. My name Noa, N-O-A, in Hawaiian means freedom. It means to be free. It is my given name by my beautiful biological parents, and it suits me very well because that's really, to me, it's all about freedom. And that's why I repeat the message and I say it's really not about eating, not eating, how much you're fasting or not fasting. I To me, it's let's free ourselves of anything that pulls us away from our natural joy and from our natural existence and from our natural way of being. And I found the description natural state, or the term natural state, I found that to be the most resonance with me. As I said, I don't like the labels of breatharianism, even chronic nourishment can feel a little unclear, perhaps, for somebody that is coming from a different background. And ultimately, there's prana in everything. Like, even when you do eat food, you're still chronically nourished. So the natural state is what I found to be the most aligned. And when we are in our natural state, which is on all levels, physically, we are speaking, a natural state is a clean body, is a body that is free of obstructions, physical physical obstructions. And now, this is not a discussion about detoxification and purification. We can do one on that at some point. But when the body is clean of obstructions and there's a free flow of energy, then we don't require that much food. Okay, so again, the art of fasting, living without food, is a natural progression of a purification process. And that purification occurs and takes place on all levels. And they're all connected. When you purify the obstructions in the body, when the lymphatic flow is open and moving, they're going to be the same flow experienced on a spiritual level. And they constantly, I say this, it's an infinity symbol. You purify your physical vessel, you're going to open up spiritually. You open up spiritually, you are going to connect more with actually what nourishes your physical vehicle as well. And for that, for all those components to be connected, because what I have seen throughout the years is this disconnection. Like, there's this highly, highly spiritual people that are so, I mean, they're just advanced on so many levels, but there's a disconnection from the body almost completely. And then there are those that, like Fabi said, are too focused on the body, completely neglecting our spiritual existence. And to me, it's about the merge. It's always about the merge. It's not that one is better than the other. It's not that the lower chakras are less than the higher chakras. It's really not. Like, why were we given all these things? Like, this is God, the creator, that we are talking about. And we have all these things for a reason. But then we go into the more, you can say, spiritual aspects of how do we utilize what it is that we've been given, right? Because even from a physical perspective, we've been given a digestive system. Well, does that mean that we are just walking food processors? No, right? So through this process, we're learning, well, maybe there are other functions to my digestive system, and some other functions to the lower chakras that I can explore, right? And so the purification removes the layers that are blocking this natural flow of energy, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And it's a beautiful journey that has chosen me, and I have unknowingly dedicated my life to, and so many of you as well that are here and listening later. So thank you for being on this journey, because it's not always easy. It's not always easy, and that's where we go into the art of fasting. And I'll address some of the questions that I have written here, because it's an art, and you get to find what works for you. So once you get exposed to this, if it's pranic family or anything else, okay, now you have the information in your hands. Is the the trick is to really apply all this information, apply it with wisdom, recognizing your own, where you at, basically, at present. And when I say recognizing where you at, is recognizing where you at in your body, physically speaking, where you at psychologically, where you are at mentally and emotionally, where are you at spiritually, and then also for many of us, it's just also the circumstances around you. And what I mean by that, there's a difference between somebody like myself, for example. Right now, I don't have a family. I don't, it's a much different reality for somebody that has 4 kids, perhaps, right, and a full-time job. So what I like to say is, make it doable also for you. So there's the fine balance between stretching ourselves and coming out of the comfort zone when it comes to embarking on this lifestyle, while simultaneously honoring and respecting where I'm at. Because otherwise, things get thrown so out of balance, and we keep kind of ping ponging from out of balance to out of balance to out of balance. And I'm saying this from experience, that I have learned, at least that's my tendency. And some people have a little bit more of that tendency of kind of going to the extremes to find that sweet spot. And to find that sweet spot, that's why it's an art. And nothing is stagnant. What's your sweet spot today is going to be a different sweet spot later on. So we're constantly being asked to tune into ourselves and see what is being asked of me, and what is realistic for me right now, what is doable for me right now. So in a sense, it's also answering what one of the questions I had here from Alice. And she asked, is there any particular time you would choose to water fast over dry, or juice fast over water or dry, or both? Have you noticed a particular pattern you seem to follow? And she added that she likes to water fast on and around my moon cycle. My womb just prefers it. So this is more for you ladies. Um, but that answers what I said earlier about, you got to listen to yourself. So if your body is saying do that more, I'm not going to tell you don't, right? So that's Alice is answering her own question, in a sense of, if your womb is liking something and saying to do that, then please do. And now when it comes to which fast do I prefer, um, same thing of really tuning into what's in the moment. Now, addressing more of the details, let's take water, dry, and juice. How to summarize it in the most concise manner. That's where, again, we're bringing in the term art, right? It's an art, knowing what you are doing and at any particular time. So for me, I embarked on a extended water fast before I did juice, right, for 3 months. If I had to choose, I would have done it differently. I would have switched the juice first, then the water. Why is that? And again, it depends on where the person is coming from, what is the level of obstruction in their colon. Right? And so we go into deeper into purification, detoxification, and for the majority of people, it's like across the board, it's the colon. We got to clean out the colon because that's also one of the reasons why it's very challenging for many people to actually be without food or even without juice for an extended period of time, right? Because when the colon is really obstructed, there's a lot of dehydration in the body as well. So before diving deeper into dry fasting and longer ones, even beyond 3 days, if that's something you would like to attain, we got to hydrate the body. First of all, we got to hydrate the colon. And there's nothing more effective than the juices. Water is just not going to do it. Water doesn't hydrate the body on a cellular level, interstitially, between the cells. It just doesn't. Water can actually tax the body more so. It's we looking for structured water, which is present in fruits. That's why one of the reasons why I'm such a fruit lover. It's Mother Nature herself designed it for the physical instrument, for the physical vehicle, for the purpose of purification. Okay? So when you ingest the fruit and when you ingest the juices, that brings in major hydration to the colon and on a cellular level. Is there a question, Julie?
No.
Okay. Okay, great. She just displayed or could have displayed a picture, so you can have that as well. You can look at that pyramid. Okay, so as I said, the juices is when you want to hydrate yourself, when you want to go deep and detox, it's the juices come in. And I moved, and this is we're talking about. I'm not like a large person with a large belly, and I had been eating predominantly living foods and a lot of years on fruits and everything for so long. And what I moved during those 3 months on juices only, I was shocked. I was shocked and mortified to some degree to even just recognize, like, wow, that has been sitting inside of me. Um, so to move all that first is going to be very helpful if you wanted to or were planning, intending, being guided to embark on a longer water a vacation or a dry feasting. So the juices are excellent for that. And there's a deep detox that happens in the body beyond just the colon moving the mucoid plaque and and all that gunk that is blocking the colon, that is blocking the body. It mobilizes the lymphatic system. It mobilizes all that stagnant energy that is creating stagnation and lack of vitality in the body. So I am a huge proponent of juice feasting. Now, the longer you go, that you have the continuation, or the meaning the continuation effect. That's the difference between, I'm just going to do a week here and then eat again and then a week there. Not saying that that's not okay. I'll touch on that for a moment. But there's something to be said about dedicating um, 3 months is the minimum, 90 days, dedicating that to juices only. Because that's also when your digestive system does not need to digest. you're giving the digestive system a break so it can start moving the gunk that has been sitting there and is old and crusty. Um, so I would say juices is the closest thing to fasting with while still ingesting some nourishment. And for some it's very helpful because then we're looking at the emotional components and the addictions that we have to flavors and wanting things in your mouth and tasting something. So some are very strong on a physical level and then also mentally, and can definitely jump into an extended water feast without all of that. So again, going back to the individual and where you're at and finding what works for you, especially psychologically. Now, when it comes to eating disorders, and if you're coming from that background, and this is a big topic for me that is very close to my heart, and Fabi, I would say that I would like to do a webinar that is or presentation dedicated just for that. But just to touch on it here, when it comes to the art of fasting, and kind of like a caveat, a side note, is when you do come from that background, is to be very, very mindful and gentle and not pull the rubber band to a place in which it snaps, because that's also what I see a lot in these communities is the ping pong, as I said earlier, of like, yeah, okay, you can fast, you can pranic feast for 3, 4, maybe even longer for some people, but then kind of swinging back and then the binging or eating too much. And it's really not just the fasting and what the times that we don't eat, which are excellent, because every time you do that, you're giving yourself a gift and you're giving your body a break. But it's really what we do consistently. It's the consistency and what we do in between those windows. That's what we, again, combining the art with the science. It's not just I see a lot of people I just fasting, but then they go back and eat heavy foods and whatnot, and it's kind of like the body keeps kind of doing this. Here I am cleaning, and then I'm dumping junk again, and here I am cleaning, and here I am uh, dumping more junk. So how dancing and finding the sweet spot and finding the balance of what is it that you do in between those windows in which you choose not to consume, and that is as important as those windows in which you are not consuming. So the fruits and the lighter foods are always the most supportive. And if you are looking to have this as a lifestyle, and we are talking about freedom, as I said earlier, is to free ourselves from the addictions and the attachments, and that food doesn't rule our reality, basically. And in order to do that, we got to clean the body as well. So a big issue for many people is fungus and parasites, which make it very, very challenging to not consume. And as I said earlier, if you tying together all those pieces, if it's the eating disorders or the those microorganisms in your body that you fast, but then you go back to overeating or having those cravings, and that is across the board. Many people with fungal issues throughout the body, and those microorganisms literally control the show and they want to be fed. And what happens is actually when we don't consume, when we go on those dry, on those pranic feasting days, they get aggravated. They get pissed off because we literally starve them. And so what happens is that, okay, you come out of the pranic feast and I can just eat everything or whatever, right? And it can really be a challenging journey. So if you are in that boat, and if that's something you experience, I know I've seen on the chat questions about what do you do with those cravings when they come so strongly. And it's, I mean, yeah, I can give you like, make this smoothie or have dates, or but you got to address those microorganisms, especially the fungus, they just want to be fed. They want to continue to be fed, and it can really be a tug of war where you are in your soul. You feel like I know that I don't want that much food. Just naturally, you are moving in that direction, but then you've got those crazy cravings that come on, and how to be free of that, right? Just how to be free of that. That we live in our natural state with ease and grace and a smile on our face. That's really my motto, my mantra, with ease and grace and smile on my face. And that's what I have trained myself to approach this with more gentleness and compassion. And as I said earlier, with the eating disorders, if that's the background that you're coming from, to be extra delicate and sensitive with yourself, that you don't push it too much, because that starts to activate that fight and flight, and your reptilian brain that is looking to survive. So finding the balance for yourself, and if you know that 24 hours of doing dry is psychologically is just good for you, then why push it, right? You're better off doing 24 hours and then coming out of the 24 hours and having the ability to still, like, maybe staying on juice or maybe just staying on all fruits. And it's that much more supportive than if you go too much and do 3 days, even if you can do it, but that throws you into an overeating or too many cravings, or again, psychologically, emotionally, it activates some memories from the past of not eating and depriving the body of food. And you'll know, I don't know, I can't tell you, but you'll know when you get to a point in which, oh, I can actually do 2 days, or I can actually do 3 days, and there's no contraction around it. It might not be fully comfortable, but that's not what we are talking about. But there's ease within you. It's not coming from a mental place of, I have to do this, or whatnot. It's more from that natural state, that natural joy, and a gift to give yourself, ultimately. A gift to give yourself. And I'll speak from my personal aspiration in the moment is, I have I have been envisioning or wanting to complete 7 days of dry, and mainly from health, actually, for the physical body, talking about those fungus and those microorganisms that I have been working with for a while. So it's been something that it's been in the back burner. And what I'm sharing with you today is, part of what I've discovered in this, like I would say, the last year and a half of not pushing myself. I'm not ready yet to do that and to honor that. Because I know a lot of people in these communities also have these very high aspirations, which is beautiful. And to have those aspirations and the visions while connecting and being aware of where you are at present, and what will be the most sustainable, right? So we're looking at the sustainability. That's why I said it's what you're doing between those windows of not consumption, because we want this to be a lifestyle. We are here because we are drawn to this lifestyle. We're not just looking for a fast to, I'll fast now to lose 10 pounds. No, this is a lifestyle because deep inside of us, we know the truth and we know what's possible for us. And we aspire to live a life of freedom and joy and in our natural state. So it has to be sustainable, this journey, this lifestyle. So before I go into some other questions I have here on the chat, I just want to check if Anybody that is here live has a question pertaining to what I just shared, and anything else that you feel inspired to share from your own experience.
Yeah, I would have a question.
Yes.
Um, because that's very interesting to me what you just said with the fungus, and yeah, relating to the fasts, because I already did 3.5 day fasts, like 2 3.5 day fasts, and even one time 5 days dry fast, and yeah, then I like fall back into eating all kinds of heavy foods, and then I got this like even visible fungus outgrowth on my skin. And for some reason, or I also feel called to do like a 7 days dry fast. And I feel like mentally I could do it, but yeah, I'm asking like I don't know, for how do you feel like for how long is it good to prepare for that, like to be like only on juices, or when I consume also raw foods before, or is it strictly on juices for even a few weeks before, or even month before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Toby, to that, it's such an individual thing. What would you say has been your lifestyle eating patterns in the last 6 months to a year?
um 6 months to a year. Well, yeah, it's been a lot of uh going back and forth, I would say, between um yeah, eating much and then fasting again, and yeah, now I feel like since 1 or 2 months it's more stable, like I mostly, yeah, eat like raw food and drink juices and smoothies, I would say. But yeah, it's not that stable, you can say. Yeah.
Okay, okay, great. I'm happy you mentioned that word because it's really about stabilizing yourself, and that applies to all of us. Is when we start embarking on something, if it's the raw food or the fruits or the juices or the fasting, is really stabilizing yourself in a particular state. When you feel stable, and when we feel stable, then we take the next step, right? It's just like when you're walking on a tightrope or you walking somewhere. It's like if you take the next step too soon, you're going to fall. But you want to feel stable first and then take the next step. Like you want to find balance first, because it's only from a balanced place that we can reach higher, right? And if you are looking for that 7 day dry fast, you're looking for that higher, the next step, that higher evolution for you, then establish balance in where you're at now. So if that means that you dedicate more time to get stabilized in more balanced eating, and you don't know what's the time frame for that, that you're going to experiment with yourself and you're going to find out. To establish yourself in a, if you know you have those patterns, to just give yourself more time to get established in a balanced way of eating. And you can still continue doing those 24 to 72 hours, because those are, every time you do that, it's amazing. It's amazing, especially those 3 days, 3.5 days. It's just, there's so much healing that happens during that time. So establish yourself in a lifestyle, in those patterns in which you do those mini non-consumption windows, I like to call them. And then in between, if you are preparing yourself physically and psychologically to do a 7-day non-consumption, is stay with the fruits for the majority. It doesn't have to be all juices. If you feel ready for that, then why not? I'm not going to tell you don't. But if you know that it's going to help you, to still have a little bit of solid during this preparation, then just have it be fruits. And it sounds like if you're in Europe, and it's summertime, this is the best time to do it because really you have the most incredible fruits available.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that would be my guidance, is to get established in a more balanced way of eating and being with food. And then those 7 days, not because again, you might be able to do it because you're strong physically and mentally, but then you don't want to come out of a 7-day non-consumption and then find yourself, binging or indulging. And it doesn't matter, even if you eat okay food, but you're overeating, overstuffing yourself, you're harming the system, because you want to do those 7 days and have those 7 days be such a, kind of like a rite of passage or a way to open yourself up to the next level for you, and living in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Could you maybe just repeat like the last thing that you said? It just broke up the connection for me.
Oh, I don't usually don't remember things that I say. uh, uh, oh yeah, I said, just yeah, stick to the fruits, when you prepare yourself, and those 7 days are going to be a catalyst and a door for you to for the next level for you, your next evolution, and a new level of freedom. Freedom from those patterns, freedom from um, the relationship that you have with food and with your body ultimately, and that you have had throughout your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is that
Okay.
anyone else that is here
Sorry,
live?
my connection is bad. Oh yeah, just wanted to say thank you.
Uh-huh.
Thank you much. That helped. That helped a
Okay.
lot.
Great. Great. Yeah. And
Hi,
Anna?
everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, Anna.
Okay, hi. I just want to say thank you so much, Noah. This has been a masterclass, and many things that you've said have really reached a point in my journey that I've needed to hear. It's just really helpful to hear your experience, and also certain guidances for continuing the journey. And a couple of the things I'll just mention also to hear myself say them out loud is one of them is the being sure to hydrate before doing extended fasts, to hydrate the colon, and also how we need to hydrate with structured water, which we can find in fruits and in juices. So that was really helpful to hear. And yeah, a few other things, but I'll just leave it there. I just wanted to share some gratitude to you, and I look forward to revisiting this talk actually, because there's so many gems in here. So thank you, Noah. Love you, love you.
Love you. Thank you, beloved. Gurav, you wanted to say something?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that before getting into the journey, I learned about Dr. Morris and his teachings, and I was hydrating myself for almost a year before, I got into this journey. I was juice feasting on mono watermelons for almost 8 months before, I went back again into eating fruits. And I was just finding my balance, because it's really important to find the balance. Otherwise, we fall out of balance all the time, and it's the back and forth that we go. So, uh, so it was quite an amazing journey. Post which I learned about dry fasting, and I really wanted to do it, for myself. So I started with intermediate fasting, and slowly, went from 16 hours to 18 hours to 24 hours to, doing this journey. Uh, but I still remember, my days when I was on mono coconut water, like not even drinking like normal water, because like coconut water is so hydrating. I love coconut water, especially the young coconuts, and there's like abundance of it in India. So I was on mono coconut water for a month, and that's where I really liked my journey. So I would say I'm still finding my balance with switching between fruits, juices, and you know uh, fasting. And also I'm like a connoisseur of spring water. I go to different places all over India to have spring water, and I really love spring water as well. Water, has the highest frequency. And yeah, I don't know what else to share. Maybe I'll share more in the coming days, but I really enjoyed this session with you. It was amazing, and thank you so much for everything.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And yes, when it comes to water, I mean, if you have access to spring water, is the kind of water that you are referring to, that not everybody has access to, because that's living water. And most water that most people drink is just not that. So you're better off not having it at all. Um, so yeah, thank you for sharing. And it's just another example of how everybody has a different dance here, and a different walk on this path, and the importance of hydration 100%. And even when you go on an extended liquid feast, the detox is very strong if you're just beginning. Like when I embarked on 3 months of just juice, I had been on this path for so long that, I mean, yes, I experienced some detox, but it wasn't like super extreme, because there's something also to be said mentally and emotionally, and the level of readiness. But for some, if you just beginning, or this is the big starting point for you, and let's just say you want to do an extended juice feast, is the detox can be very strong, physically, mentally, emotionally. And again, it's just finding balance, that sometimes it might be more beneficial for you, before you embark on just 90 days or 6 months or 8 months of just watermelon juice, is to do um, 30 days, or even if it's you do 2 weeks on just juice, and then you give yourself a few days of eating just fruits. I mean, that's another thing of, the kind of balance that I'm playing with. Um, I'll do liquids for just a few days, and then a day dry, and then another day of liquids, and then I'll go and eat some fruits, even though my body is at the point in which I feel best with just liquids. And I know that even eating fruits that I love, watery fruits, I just don't, it doesn't sit well with me. So it's, again, listening to where you're at in your body, and play with it, have fun with it, let it be a joyful experience. That's where I'm coming to. Let it be a joyful experience, because there's also something to be said for some of us, that the eating part is something that brings you joy. Because I've heard people say, and even for myself, it's kind of like beating yourself up because you actually still enjoy eating. That's like the opposite energy, moving us away from actually being nourished by prana, because we are looking for that joy and looking for that love. So I recognize for myself that even though being empty or just on liquids is my like I feel at my best, and I know that there's still, and I know that that's where I'm at. That part of me is going to be shed, is going to be transformed at some point in my life, but I'm not going to force that point. I'm just going to allow it to happen naturally, just like so much has happened naturally up until this point. I wasn't seeking for it, it's just transforming in very naturally. So recognizing that actually I still like I love fruits, and sometimes I do like to eat, and food does bring me some sort of a joy, then have it be joyful, because it's the energy of joy and it's the energy of love that is going to help the transformation, that is going to help also moving obstructions on a more mental, emotional, psychological level, especially if you are coming from a background of a lot of restriction and deprivation. And you know for yourself, it doesn't need to be eating disorders, it could be, but if you know that you have that tendency of, or maybe being too rigid, maybe being too restrictive with yourself, maybe being too dogmatic or judgmental, you want to shift all those patterns. That's part of the art. That's part of this journey, to be connected to this life force that's prana is, this life force that lives within us, and that life force is with the energy of joy, and anything less than that moves us away from our natural state. Okay, so that's part of the art of the dance of the masculine and the feminine, is the discipline with the natural flow of life. Right? And that, again, that's why I call it art, because for each and every one of you is going to be a very unique journey and exploration of finding that balance. And when it's time to bring in some discipline, but not from a place that creates contraction and creates disharmony. Right? Because discipline can come with a sense of harmony and ease. And that is an art, 100%. Another question I want to address here from Alice as well. She asked if, do you know how to best fast for hormone rebalancing or metabolism boosting? Some talk of different ratios of time with intermittent fasting. What's your opinion? So that's a large discussion. When it comes to hormone, anything out of balance in the body, I can't give you, oh, this kind of fast, or this is, you're going to eat this to bring your hormones back to balance. No. Anything that is out of balance in the body is systemic. We can separate the liver from the heart and the brain from the gut. It works as a system. And this is coming from regenerative detoxification and the ability of the body to regenerate itself. We got to step out of the way, and then the body knows what to do. Okay, so any hormone imbalances come from, and that is, I would say, across the board, endocrine system malfunction to some degree, right? So we want to address the endocrine system through detoxification, and that happens with the fruits, with the juices, and with the fasting. And it's when you combine that, like, there's just nothing is going to beat that. It's the windows in which you don't consume, and then what is it that you consume in between those windows of non-consumption. So basically the consumption, the times in which we do consume, is to prepare the body, at least on a physical level, to not consume. So the less obstructions you have and the more hydrated you are, the easier it is to not consume on a physical level. Okay, again, there's the emotional aspects and the psychological and the spiritual, but to bring hormones back to balance is not about you intermittent fast for this amount of time and that's going to help the hormones. No, it's the fact that you actually healing the body through not eating, through not consuming, basically. And it's a matter of time until the body comes back to homeostasis, to a state of harmony in which the hormones are balanced by themselves, and things return back to happy existence. So you find your own balance there. Like intermittent fasting, yeah, it's great. It's not the solution though. I see it so much out there. It's like, oh, intermittent fasting, I'll just do that. Well, yes, but what else is it that you do? And it's the longer windows also that are bringing so many benefits. So you find what works for you on a daily basis. Those are the key, really. Also, when coming into fasting, um, those are the key components. Is your daily windows. So the hours in between the last time that you consume to the first thing that you consume, and you can start stretching that more and more until before you know it, 24 hours is without even thinking about it, right? Again, ease and grace, it's just easy. And then you do the weekly, right? And this is what we do here with pranic families, like you do the weekly. And even with that, I mean, I know with the pranic family, it's like it's a particular day. What I found works best for me. For some people, it is every Sunday. I know that I do that, or every Monday, whatever the day is. For me, what I found is I do the weekly, but it's just I've tried to do. It's just going to be Saturday, and it doesn't work. So I've learned that about myself. What's going to make it doable for me is I'm going to do it whenever I feel the time during the week to do 24, 36. Sometimes it's longer. And that works best for me. So find what works best for you. And then we have the monthly, and it can be once a month or twice a month. I like, to incorporate some moon cycles as well. If it's the new moon or the full moon, you do that on a monthly basis. And that's the 3.5 days that we do here. So that's a great way to start. And then you find your groove there. You just play with the dailies, play with the weeklies, and just have fun with it, and tune into your own guidance, your own wisdom. Okay, so I want to address here. Mela asked talk about juice fasting, how to develop and stick to a juicing routine. So before I even continue with that question, even just the wording of how to develop and stick to a juicing routine is the glue that stick everything together is self-love. Is when you come to a place in which you realize the magnificence and the value of this vehicle of your body, but also just your life. You don't need to force yourself to stick to anything. So developing and sticking to a juicing routine, I would ask myself a deeper question before that is, what's your why behind it? And get really connected and established with that why. And perhaps you're trying to force yourself to do something that is a little bit premature, right? So what will be a more balanced and sustainable approach for you? I'm addressing Mela and anybody else that it might apply to you, that you don't need to like just throw yourself into a juicing routine, but you just start, maybe it's just a few days a week that you juice, and then you go back to salads, but you stay with fruits, maybe some salads, and establish yourself in a more balanced way, and then and see how it goes from there. Because again, when I did 90 days, it was easy for me. It was easy. I had days and I was like, yeah, it would be nice to choose something, but it wasn't even in comparison to, it was just easy because I was ready. I was ready mentally, I was ready psychologically, I was ready physically, which it was just easy. I was just ready. There was no forcing of any kind. Also, I had a wake up call. I really did, because I had one of the things that I practice as a detoxification specialist is iridology, just reading the eyes. And I knew that so much of my whatever issues, it was my gut, and that's pretty much across the board for people. But I had an iridology reading with another friend and a detox specialist, and the way she presented it, when you hear things that just pierce through you, and you just know, she was the one that I needed in that moment to receive that message. And she said, Noah, you got to do 90 days on juice. And that was it. 2 days later, I started. I did a dry window of, I think it was 4 days, and then I jumped into the juice. And because there was it was a deep readiness. Okay, so just don't force yourself into anything. Again, sustainability. You're better off maybe just doing 2 days juice, then eating, then a little bit more juice, and then when you're ready, you're gonna do it. And support is crucial. Support is absolutely crucial, to be around people just like we're doing here, to have the people in which can inspire, can uplift, can provide guidance. But again, like, no one can really lift us and pull us. It has to come from within. So when you're ready, you're ready. And then the guidance or the support helps. Um, any recommendation, which juices to consume in a day? So when I get those questions, you always hear me. It's like a broken record, a repeating record. Is you gotta listen to yourself. Gurudev mentioned that he did 8 months on just watermelon juice, and I resonate with you, my friend, because watermelon is kind of like my drug of choice. That's my favorite juice. And during those 3 months, I ended up towards the end. I think it was like the last, I don't know, whatever it was, 40 days or something, in which that's all my body wanted. It was just watermelon and melons. That's all I wanted. So mentally, I could have listened, to all the juice gurus out there. It's like, you need this juice, you need this, you need that, la la la. My body was like, I don't want any of that. I couldn't do orange juice. I couldn't do. It was just watermelon and melon. And it happened to be also in the season where I was, and it was absolutely spectacular. And so there's wisdom, innate wisdom within us, and we are connected to everything. So in terms of what juices to consume, your body is going to tell you. I can tell you that. Same thing goes to the amount. You might need more at the beginning, and the longer you go, also the more you clean your GI tract, and you start absorbing nutrients, because that's another thing about obstructions and why people need more food, is that you don't really absorb nutrients. But once you clean the gunk out of the intestines, and you start absorbing more, you need less. And then you have actually more energy from less consumption. How do you explain that? Right? So it's always about elimination. You got to eliminate. It's not what we put in, but it's what we remove out that makes room for the good stuff to flow in. And the good stuff is not necessarily, physical food. It's eliminate the accumulation. Exactly. We eliminate, and that's when we start absorbing. And same thing applies, to absorbing, like what we talk about, right? The elements, absorbing the sunlight, absorbing the particles in the air, everything that we talk about when it comes to pranic nourishment. When you are obstructed, even on a physical level, it's a little bit, you're not as deeply nourished because you're not absorbing it like somebody that is less obstructed. Are we talking about even the skin? It's the largest organ. And a lot of people's skin, even though the skin can look pretty, but on a deeper level, the skin is actually obstructed. So you don't actually absorb the moisture that is present in the air. Because when you are so clean and you're able to go long with no consumption, no water whatsoever, and it's not even a big deal, it's because you are able to utilize the moisture that is present in the air. How do we absorb that? Through the skin. Why do you think the creator has made the skin to be the largest organ, the largest surface? Because it was designed to absorb. But if you're not absorbing it, then of course it's going to be more difficult than to somebody that is that much cleaner and open skin and can absorb the moisture from the air and then don't require that much or at all liquids, right? So it's internally and externally from the skin. It's just such an incredible system, right? That this vehicle. And then she asked about how to handle cold juice if you have stored it in the fridge for a few hours. So that's for me personally, I like juice that is fresh. I don't really like to store it in the fridge. But again, whatever is doable for you. If it's more doable to pre-make the juice, then just pre-make it, put it in the fridge, and then just take it out of the fridge like an hour before you know you're going to drink it, so it's not that cold. Or what I've done in the past when I did have cold juice in the fridge, and I was somewhere and let's just say it was a little bit more chilly, I would just boil water and then just put it in a pot, or at least heat some water, put it in a pot, and then put the jar of juice, because it's, for me, it's always in glass. I don't use plastic or anything, and I just put that in the hot water and allow it to warm the juice even faster than if it's just sitting on the counter. So you can try that. And then she asked about how to apply fasting when coming from a background of eating disorders. So I addressed that, and I also, in the Telegram chat, if it does apply to you, and how to approach fasting if you have that background, because it's a large topic. I've done a webinar about that specifically. So the link is in the Pranic Family chat, and you can check out that YouTube link. And I go into more details about the emotional, the psychological, the way the brain is wired for somebody that comes from that background, and the importance of being very sensitive and delicate when it comes to fasting, and how to go about it safely, that it doesn't, throw you out of balance again. Do you have any tips how to handle the void space and feelings of dissatisfaction that occur when someone stops stuffing it with solid food? And that is remarkable question that I've been exploring for for a while, and this is your own individual journey in a sense, Melanie, Mela, that I can't really give you the answer, but that's what we are here to do, is to discover how to be full of ourselves in a sense. And what I mean by that is full of our own magnificence. And it's a journey, and to just honor and to acknowledge. Like I had a point in my journey in which, to be honest with myself, and I acknowledge, like, I am using food, even if it's the fruits, doesn't matter. It's the fact of just like putting something in the mouth, acknowledging for myself, I'm not fulfilled, and I'm using this food right now to fulfill something. And even that act alone, when you ask if I have any tips, it's always love and compassion, and to bring full awareness, consciousness and awareness to everything that you do. That even if you are overeating or whatever it is, you bring full awareness to it, that you don't disassociate yourself from the moment. That if you're going to do it, just do it with gusto, so to speak, and speak to your inner child, speak to that part of you that is not the real you in a sense, right? It's just we identify with a certain emotion, we identify with a certain desire, and we act on it. So, of course, all these practices that we do here, the breath work, the qigong, all those energy cultivation practices are for that to, especially I come from the yogic tradition. That's the system that I've practiced for so long and teach. But it's really a system of sublimation. We sublimate the energy with the practice of yoga, whichever style you do. And same thing with breath work, especially when you do breath retentions. What we do, what's the mechanism behind it? What we do when we practice all those things is we sublimate the energy. We bring the energy from the lower chakras, in which that's where we store the desires, that's where we store the cravings energetically, the fears, the trauma, and we sublimate that. We bring it into higher places in which transmutation and transformation occur. So the power of those lower desires, lower cravings, lower patterns become less and less powerful. And that's the journey. That's the journey for you to explore and discover for yourself. But again, in the meantime, or simultaneously, is to bring the utmost love and gentleness to the process and to be honest with yourself and say, yes, I'm stuffing myself. I'm eating this food because I'm not fulfilled, right? To not judge yourself for that, to not shame yourself, to not blame anyone, to remove the guilt and the shame from the system and bring in love and compassion. And it's the love and compassion that helps us to transform any, I would say, quote unquote, lower energies, lower patterns. And again, it happens naturally. It happens organically, in which just start noticing how the patterns of overeating, or even the food that you choose to overeat on, changes throughout time. And you celebrate every milestone, you celebrate every what seems to be a small step along the way, and you give yourself that appreciation. It's that part of you that is looking for that reassurance. Okay, and again, I would recommend you watch that video of the eating disorders, because I address the inner child and not feeling safe. You know, for many of us, eating disorders or not, it's really not feeling safe in the body. It's not feeling safe in this world. And the only way in which you can create real safety is by developing a very loving and intimate relationship with yourself. So then we don't utilize and use food or any other things as a way to, to feel that sense of safety. And as I mentioned earlier, because there's those different elements, the fungus and the parasites. Like I bring it into every conversation like this, because it's also, they control our emotions and our desires, and what feels like a void and a dissatisfaction that is there when the food is not there, because they're literally wanting to be fed. And once you remove that out of your system, there's a big difference, even emotionally and mentally. So it's something that is really important for me to bring in and to address, because I know many people just don't know, right? It's just a piece of information, and then it becomes a battle. It's like, oh my God, I want less food, and my body, I really feel that I don't want that much, I don't need that much, but then you still go back and eat certain things, and not knowing that there's literally other creatures, other entities that are asking to be fed. So um, okay, so these are all the questions that I had on the chat. So if there's any other questions for people that are present here. Yes, Julie, I will post the link there. Well, if there are no more questions here on the live, then yes, my pleasure. Yeah, if there are no questions here on the live, then thank you so much for joining here today. And if you're watching the recording, yeah, then just post your comments, down below, below the video, and on the Telegram chat. You can also post your questions, and you can message me directly if you have more specific things pertaining to your own journey. But really, it's a pleasure for me to share this. There's just so much that we can dive into, and I appreciate you being on your journey and being so courageous, being courageous on this path. So I'm sending you lots of love for now, and we'll do more of these soon. And if you are new to the Pranic Family website, if you're coming from different channels associated with me, then yeah, just check out the platform, because there are many different videos and offerings happening on a daily basis, and it's such a beautiful space and a place to have the support that I was talking about and find your groove there, you know. So check it out, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thanks, Elizabeth. Nice to have you here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Gurav.